welcome to my studio. Today we're working on our glue gun holly leaf garland. This is made using a glue gun and it is very simple. We're going to show you how.
To create my pattern, I wanted to do two holly leaves. You may want to do just one, but I wanted to think about how big I wanted it. So the first thing I did is I knew about the size I wanted it, so I drew like an upside down V, and that was the center of both of my hollies. I knew that I wanted to have one on top and one on the bottom, so I drew the first one first, and you kind of draw almost a C part, so it ducks and goes down in and comes out and goes down in and comes out. So we're going to do that on both sides, and so we have that. So then this second one, this is going to be our center, is going to be underneath this. So we're going to do the same thing again, but we're going to think about what area would be under the top one. Now, I tried doing it with less veins in it, and I think because of the size and everything, I wanted them a little bit closer together than I originally had. You could decide, that's totally up to you. There's no right or wrong in that. It's just going to be a personal preference, but I think that it also helps hold all of this together. So go ahead, get your pattern drawn out, and then we'll start putting it together. To do our holly, we're going to be using a hot glue gun, and we are using hot. We're just using regular hot glue gun sticks. I always get asked that question. So we're going to be using a silicone mat that is see-through. Mod Podge does have some, but it just needs to be a see-through mat. Now, if you don't have a mat, you also can use a piece of glass. If you don't have one, you can go to the thrift store and just pick up a banged up frame and use the glass out of that. And a lot of times you can get that less than $1. So that's something to think about. And then spray it with vegetable spray, Pam, anything like that. But what we're going to do is we're simply going to follow our pattern, and it will get easier the more you do it. And we're just going to follow our pattern, and we want to have this thick enough. We don't want to hurry it and make this nice and thin. We want to just kind of slowly go so this is nice and thick, and we'll talk about what to do if it gets too thin. I had to pull my handle back there. That's kind of why I stopped there, and then come on all the way up to the top. It will get easier the more you go on, so that each one will get better than the last one. And we're just going to go right up the middle here, all the way to the top and the outside. Now, if you do an area that is too thin, just stop, walk backwards onto that area. Like if I mess that one up, just walk back into that. It's hot enough that it'll melt right back in, and you won't be able to notice that. I did it again there, and I noticed it is not quite as thick as I like it right there. So do that while it is nice and warm still to get that thicker and melted together. Don't wait and go back and touch it up later. You can, but it'll be harder to do, and it could show up a little bit more than you would probably like it to. So that's something to think about. Okay, now that we've got the outside and we've got a firm area, try to get rid of your tails as you're working too. And I usually keep a used fabric sheet and just wipe it off as I'm working. That works really well to catch all those tails and keep the glue gun clean. So now I'm just going to do these veins, and I'm going to jump over the middle and just do both sides at the same time. So again, you're going to anchor it onto the edges, otherwise there's nothing for it to hold on. That's real important. And when you get to that edge, you want to kind of stop that, and I should be cleaning those tails off, and I wouldn't get all the tails in there before you go to the other side. Okay, so we've got that side done. So now we're just going to come to this other one, and we're going to do it exactly the same way that we did our last one. So when I'm working, I actually try to put 4 on this sheet so I can start my second one while this one's cooling. You don't want to touch it. You don't want to mess with it because you're just going to make it flake and go everywhere. So let it cool down, get it nice and dry, and then once it's dried for several minutes, we're going to just simply peel it off, and then we're going to start to paint it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean off all of our tails and remove any of those. And if there's anything you need to trim off with your scissors or wire cutters or whatever, you can do that at this time. But just get all of those removed. And then we're going to paint them. And I am going to use multi-surface acrylic paint. And it is multi-surface, so it'll go on plastic and different things like that. I'm going to pick up Folk Art, and this is from Walmart. I'm using lime green and classic green. So it does make a difference that it is the multi-surface. That's the one thing I want to point out. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of that into my plate and do both the light and the dark. And these are, I think, only 2 greens that they carry anyway. I'm going to use these little sponge guys to put it on. If you want to do a brush, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm just going to simply dip them into my water and squeeze them out. There shouldn't be any moisture left in there. There shouldn't be nothing that drips out. And I'm going to put this in my paint, and then I'm going to move it around so I don't have a blob anywhere. And I'm going to paint the outside of my holly. And it doesn't matter if you don't get this all over on both sides, because the glue is see-through, so you're going to have it on both sides even if you don't get it painted, because it's going to show through. So I'm not worried about getting it perfect. So I'm going to do on the outside, and then I'm going to take the light green on the inside and just kind of do it that way. You may want to do that reversed. You may want to do it different. You may want to do it all one color. It just gives it a little bit more dimension, I think. And then I'm going to let that really dry. And if you'd like to varnish it, which helps keep the paint on it, you could go outside in a well-ventilated area. And I use just any expensive Krylon or Rust-Oleum, anything you pick up for Walmart under $4. Just do a light coat over the top. If you want to do more than one, you can do a couple. You can do matte, you can do satin. That just depends on if you want it to be shiny or flat or whatever you want that to be. So go ahead and get all of those guys painted up, and then we'll move to the next step. While that's drying, we're going to talk about what I put my rope on. And you could use any type of rope. I used some jute I picked up at the thrift store. You could use the clothesline rope, and that's real inexpensive, and you can find that in your home section at your local Walmart or store like that, and it's white, but it's a lot cheaper for ropes. So that's something to think about. I used some gems for my berries. I think that really set these off. I should have done 2 red and 1 white. I was planning on doing that and I forgot, but you could use rhinestones. You can even put these parts red and paint them red. So there's all kinds of things you can do by making them with the glue gun. Do one at a time, let it dry, and do the next one time and let it dry, so they don't all run together and make a big blob if you decide to do that. But I kind of liked the way they looked and it gave it that extra little shine and sparkle. I picked those up at the Dollar Tree, so if you wanted to find those there, you could. And we're going to go ahead and start putting our garland together. The one thing I do is I always leave 3 feet of rope on the ends to tie it up to something, because I found that I usually don't have enough instead of too much. So that's just something I kind of do as a general rule now. And you kind of want to figure out how far you want these together, or how close. You may also want to know where you're going to put them. If it's a fireplace or somewhere to decorate, you may have a certain area, so you may want so many. I'm doing 8 on this one. You may want to do 6, you may want to do 12. That all kind of depends on what you decide. I have decided that I'm doing these about 10 inches apart from this point to this point, and that leaves just a little bit in between. So we're going to put those right about 10 inches. I'm going to know where that is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some hot glue gun underneath it, and then set my rope into it. I'm just going to double check that again real quick here. About 10 inches. So I lost that. And so I'm going to put that into that, and then I'm going to put a little bit more on the top, and I'm going to set my painted holly. And you should already have it if you've varnished it or whatever you're going to do. If you're going to paint the hollies red, you may want to do that. And then I'm going to just put a big clump behind it on this rope, kind of thinking about adding those 3 rhinestones or berries or whatever you want to call them. And I'm going to put some glue up in between those as well. So I'm going to get all 3 of those in there. And I shouldn't have been bringing my glue gun back over my holly. Getting all those little pieces there. So we're going to let that dry and not move that again. Now and I do a couple at a time so I can keep working. I decided to use our little fairy lights, and I have been putting these on. We have these at miriamjoy.com. And then I have been cutting little pieces of material. And I started out with 3, and I thought I liked 4 better. These are around 5 inches, I think. About 5.5 inches. You don't want them much taller than that. The reason being is because they don't hang straight. So I just kind of tuck these under the berries when we're going down the line here. And I'm just going to tie these on with 1 tie, and I alternated my colors all the way across. So you want to give this a long time to cool, because the inside, because the glue is so thick, is going to take a while. But you want to make sure that this is anchored very well onto the rope, and it's not just going to be pulled off. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep on working my way down. After my last one, I'm going to do 4 more of these little ties, and then I'm going to have 3 more feet of my rope, and that will finish up our holly garland.
I hope you enjoyed our video. For any of our fairy lights, please come on over to miriamjoy.com where we have those. I tested those because I had so many people ask. I had mine for 24 hours for 5 days, and they were still going a little bit faint, but they were doing great. So that kind of gives you an idea how those last. But wouldn't that look great on a fireplace or anywhere where you want to put that? Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.